So we were out of money, and we had some short-term debt that needed to be paid, and there was about a 3 or 4 week time period where I just didn't, there was no sleep. So I jumped ship from there in April 2012. And right after I jumped ship from Listing Book, my wife was like, "Can we please take the kids on spring break? Just go do something. Take a little break," because I'd been working nonstop. PlayerSpace was like 5 in the morning to 8 a.m. Listing Book was 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. And then I'd work out, I'd be away from home all week. And so we went on vacation with the kids. And when I got back, I found out that funds that I had committed to get me through my first year, they weren't committed. So, wife, 4 kids, no income. I'd already put a good bit of a life savings in PlayerSpace at that point. So like I actually felt like this is not going to work. It's over, right? Done. That was literally like a death that I felt. So, one of the things that I always said at PlayerSpace to all the employees, whenever we would, wake up in the morning and get to work, is, our only job today is to bring as much value to our customers and to each other as we can. So, whether you're an entrepreneur in the room or, want to learn more about how you might be able to pick up some of these tips for your career, I hope you get some value out of this, just in the terms of, you just keep doing the next right thing and it works out. Have some faith. So, January 2013, we finally got a little bit of our legs underneath us. Not too long later, I figured out how to get some money, product evolving. Well, this whole industry that was like nothing, like overnight, turned into something. Like it was, didn't exist, and then next thing you know, there's a bunch of smaller companies. Dick's Sporting Goods buys our competitors, gives the product away for free. So I'm like, all right. So now I got to compete with Dick's Sporting Goods and free. I mean, all right, death number 2. But we did it. We just kept doing the next right thing, kept hustling, kept the value that we were providing to our clients centric to everything that we did. February, and that led to a really nice partnership and integration, technical integration with an 800-pound gorilla in a tangential industry, but had the exact same clients that we wanted. So this integration was big, but it absolutely flopped. I can remember being at a New Hanover High School basketball game, watching my son play, and checking my phone, getting that email from a couple of our customers saying, "This just isn't going to work." God. I don't know how long after that it was to get that all back on track, but it definitely seemed like forever, and that was another death that I would say, like, it just didn't work. Fall of 2014. So we got through this one. Fall of 2014, we had started to establish our niche, right? YMCAs became our niche. They started to really, really love us. We started to be able to speak their language. They had a clear problem. We provided a unique, clear solution to it. And then in the fall of 2014, there was a big conference. All of our customers were there. All of our prospects were there. We finally got this integration back on track that really made that work. And sure enough, like a lot of small tech companies go through, you end up growing too fast, and it was a debacle. it was like we couldn't get anything right with that integration with those customers. And we were at a conference with all of those prospects. We were the featured vendor there, featured partner, and the bad news about everything that was going on was spread like wildfire. And so it was like the worst case scenario. You got all of your customers and prospects in one place, and they're an homogenous group, and they're all, things aren't going well.
It's like having all your ex-girlfriends at the prom at the same time.
I don't want to talk about it. We're just talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
obviously made it through that. So in the summer of 2015, this YMCA thing, from that fall to that summer, 8, 9 months later, we made it through it. We were really growing rapidly in the YMCA market. We had a good scalable infrastructure in place, but things got even crazier. So Dick's Sporting Goods, like I said, bought one of our big competitors. Sports Illustrated bought a whole bunch of our other competitors and even had conversations with us during that time period. We obviously weren't ready. They passed on us. But Jerry Jones had just funded with another guy you never heard of, but also ultra wealthy dude who made a bunch of money in the tech business. What they were going to put together as a competitor of ours, and secured about $100 million from Providence Equity to go and start acquiring businesses once they had, And so we were one of their first acquisition targets, and they gave us a deal that just, was the kind of deal that a big mega company would give to a little startup that they thought had stars in their eyes. And, it was one of the only times in my entire career that I said some really bad words in a public setting. But so we didn't end up selling them, but they said, look, you're going to sell to us, or, we're going to end up putting you out of business. That didn't happen. And right around that same time, NBC Universal bought the last remaining really big competitor in our space for like $300 million. So now we're competing with, basically Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys, mega funded, NBC Universal, Dick's Sporting Goods. But we had established our niche, and we were really strong in it, But it was right at that time, again, where we started to see some infrastructure problems. March 2016, that's when, if anybody has kids that have played soccer, spring soccer is like, that's like starting at the end of March, right? And for recreational sports. And at the time, we probably had maybe 500,000 kids going through our system. Crashed. Nobody could get their game schedules. People were on the wrong fields all over the country. I mean, it was like, it's over again. It's like, it's just another literal death. Like, I felt like I thought it was going to work, didn't, but we came out of that. But it was an awful lot of pressure on our CTO. And he just said, a little bit, a couple of weeks after that, a week or so after, he's like, I'm out. Can't do it. And it took, I gotta say, by God's grace only, I don't know how we ended up talking him into staying, but it took about a week. And he ended up staying, and we kind of just, everybody took a breath, took a step back, and said, if we need to grow slower, we'll grow slower. I'm public apology. I put a heck of a lot of pressure on the team, and I still don't feel great about it.
How many people do you have at that point?
At this point, we had about 10 people. That's it. And we're competing, like I said, with some of these mega folks. Got through it. I mean, we're really starting to grow at this point, but like I said, the thing I knew least about was capital raise. I knew a little bit about it, but and here we are in Wilmington. It wasn't real easy to raise money in Wilmington. We had people saying you'll never make it, like literally. And I don't care. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not the kind of person like, see, we made it. Whatever. It wasn't like that. It just, sometimes the support was there, but most of the times it wasn't. So we were out of money, and we had some short-term debt that needed to be paid, but. And there was about a 3 or 4 week time period where I just didn't, there was no sleep. I was like, we're just done, whatever. Just another debt didn't work. We did end up getting some money. We ended up, when all was said and done, having a fraction of what our competitors had invested in them, and ended up with about, close to 3 million annual users, nationally by the time we sold the business in 2020. And 2017 on was a great time. It was an absolutely great time. And it took those 4 years to experience those last 3. And so I don't know if that helps anybody. I really hope it does, because it is a story of, if you have a purpose and you have a vision and you just do the next right thing with everything you got, the result can be pretty good. It's not a guarantee, but there's a lot of evidence that result can be pretty good. So, that's our story. It was in January 2020. We had been talking to a handful of potential suitors, sold to a private equity firm in San Francisco, and it was great. It was a great day.
It was the timing of COVID, right? It's the timing of the start of COVID.
The timing was great, and people ask me about that all the time. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I don't know if I had it in me to keep it going. I was pretty tired at the time, but there were some things that were going on with our business that could have made it a lot bigger, even given COVID. So, but you never know. I'm totally grateful. I wouldn't change one thing. It was perfect as is. I wouldn't change anything. And so, Jim asked, if you were to give, 3 pieces of advice, I'd say, well, I can't really give advice. I can only share my experience. If they help, I hope they do. I really do. So I got, 3 quick tips, and this kind of leads into, a whole bunch of people would ask me afterwards. I get calls all the time. What did you do? What was the most important thing? What kind of advice would you get, or what suggestions would you give? I said, well, look, what I learned is most of the companies don't make us because they don't have a good product market fit, and that's part of your go-to-market strategy, right? You got to have that product market fit in a really, really solid go-to-market strategy. So that's kind of what my consulting company is doing right now, and we've got some ideas to grab some tech around it. But that's 5% of all startups. They don't have the right go-to-market strategy, the right product market fit, and it causes an awful lot of wasting time and investor money and really solid value that entrepreneurs should be providing. Operate always as if one day you will either sell your business or go out of business, because that day will come. I'm not really aware of a third outcome. There might be, but always have those 2 things in mind. It's managing to a specific outcome. It's either, from my experience, going to be the sale, or it's going to be, okay, this wasn't right, didn't work. Some people say, well, the third outcome, well, you can pass it down to your kids, or it goes on a generation. Eventually, it's going to end up in one of those 2, whether it's a sale or private equity, go public. Once you take that investment money, it's either sell to a private equity firm or to outright separate company. It's not yours. So this is pretty personal for me, right? Prepare to work for at least 3 years on something different after you sell your company. At least for me, this is my experience. The elation from the sale, it faded pretty quickly, and it got replaced instantly with a void. And I'm not ashamed to say that it was close to a depression. I really, and I say that because, again, if it can help or provide value, keep that in mind. If I had I wouldn't change anything I learned. I'm happy to share my experience. But, if I had a crystal ball and could do it over or provide some advice, I or suggestions, I'd be like, go right into something else. Go right into something else. A lot of people advise against that. No, that's not my experience. Go right into something else. Let all of the emotions and everything settle from the previous company in that void that you're gonna need to fill. Let that happen organically while you're actively providing value to others doing something else. So that's my story. Thanks, y'all.
That's
Tell everyone what you're doing now.
It's real GTM, real go-to-market, real go-to-market strategy and consulting is put together a framework for how to go to market successfully and avoid a lot of those problems that can be a result of a faulty go-to-market strategy and ultimately end up in putting companies in a really bad position. It just was one of those things where I just kept getting, I got a lot of, when I wanted to raise money, nobody answered the phone. I called people. After I sold the business, the phone rang an awful lot. And, those questions, there were a lot of times it was, what did you do that really helped? And, we had a good product. And we had a great go-to-market strategy. And then, so that became kind of a recurring thing. So, got some ideas of how to use technology and AI to really bring that company into something special. So that's what we're doing right now.
How can the people in the audience interact with you with your new company?
I mean, hopefully you picked up from just me talking. Pretty open guy. Just hit me up on LinkedIn. Anybody wants my number or whatever, go to the website, fill out a contact us form. I'm always pretty quick to get back. So, and yeah, pretty easy.
One more difficult question: why did you choose to go to Charleston?
Yeah. The restaurants? No, I'm just kidding. It's really kind of simple. We moved to Charleston and didn't plan. We didn't know how long we were going to stay. COVID had hit. Our youngest of 4 was a sophomore in high school. She was going to Hoggard. Hoggard announced, it was the rest of New Hanover County, that they were going to be all virtual the following year. And so that would have been her junior year. And so my wife and I, planned to buy a place in Charleston after she graduated high school. And we just said, do you want to go look at schools in Charleston? Because we had that mobility because of the sale. And that was it. We went, she looked at a few, ended up going to a private school on Daniel Island. And we bought a place on Daniel Island and really didn't know how long we would stay there. But we just figured, for her last couple of years of school, and nobody knew what was going to happen with COVID. And so that she had the opportunity to go in person some and still participate.
So it really wasn't a tax savings of moving one state down that has a lower tax.
I'd already paid those taxes. I already took that hit. No, listen.